Do you love watermelon, but you aren't sure you can eat it without spiking your blood sugar? Then stay tuned, because today I am answering that burning question. Is it safe to eat watermelon with diabetes? Hey everyone, Erin here with Healthy Mom, Happy Family, and I am so excited for you to join me here today. That's because I am starting a new series called, Can I Eat That with Diabetes? And since watermelon is here, it's in season, and I am getting so many questions about watermelon and if it's good for diabetes, I thought that this would be a really great place to start. So today, as your registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator, I wanted to dive into the research on watermelon. And I'm going to share with you all of the facts about watermelon and blood sugar, and if you truly can eat watermelon safely with type 2 diabetes. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you, if you have diabetes or are actively trying to prevent type 2 diabetes, and you're looking for tips and tricks and healthy recipes, then make sure you subscribe so you never miss a new video. Okay, so let's talk about watermelon, because I am sure if you have done a search online to look at foods to avoid with diabetes and fruits to avoid with diabetes, you probably see that watermelon is at the top of the list. Now that's probably confusing because you've also heard from other sources, I'm sure, that you should eat more whole fruits with diabetes. So what is it, right? Should you eat watermelon? Should you avoid it? I know it's confusing, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because I really want to share with you how watermelon compares to other fruits when it comes to sugar content and the impact on your blood sugar. I want to show you how watermelon can impact your health, negatively and positively. And finally, I want to answer that burning question for you: can you eat watermelon with diabetes? So we are going to go through all of that in today's video, and you are going to know for certain if you can have watermelon this summer. Okay, so who's ready to get started? I know I am, because watermelon is delicious and it's juicy and it's sweet, and I'm sure you're gonna wanna have more of it. So let's dive in by talking about the sugar content. Now, almost all fruit contain natural sugar. The only exception for that is really avocado, which is a fruit but doesn't contain any naturally occurring sugars. So watermelon is really no different from other fruits. In 1 cup of diced watermelon, it contains 9 grams of sugar. Now, this is naturally occurring sugar, not added sugar. And remember, there is a difference, because with natural sugars, they occur in this matrix of other nutrients like water and fiber and antioxidants, and that's why they tend to be beneficial to health and to diabetes management. They can have a positive impact on blood sugar, especially when we look at the fiber content. Now, when you compare that to added sugars, they don't have any of that. That's why they tend to spike blood sugar. And that's why we see that research shows when we eat more whole fruits in the diet, we see a decreased risk of type 2 diabetes. Whereas if you eat a lot of foods with added sugars, you increase your risk. So fruit like watermelon contains naturally occurring sugars, no added sugar. Okay, so if watermelon contains 9 grams of sugar per cup, you're probably wondering how that compares to other fruits, right? So let's take a look at comparing 1 cup of watermelon to 1 cup of other sliced fruit. 1 cup of sliced apples, 13 grams of sugar. 1 cup of sliced bananas, 18 grams of sugar. 1 cup of sliced pineapple, 16 grams of sugar. And 1 cup of sliced strawberries, 8 grams of sugar. So that means if we are comparing these fruits, aside from strawberries, watermelon has the least amount of sugar per cup than the other fruits. It actually has less sugar than an apple. And you don't hear anyone else telling you to avoid apples with diabetes, right? So the main reason for this is that watermelon has a high volume of water. It's actually made up of 92% water. And you know, that makes sense when you think of the name watermelon. It makes sense it has a lot of water, right? So because it's rich in water, it allows this melon to have a large volume or portion size with limited sugar. So if we're comparing cup per cup, watermelon does tend to be lower in sugar due to its water volume. So now let's talk about how watermelon affects blood sugar, okay? Because just because watermelon has less sugar per cup than, let's say, an apple, we looked at the apple has about 13 grams as opposed to the 9 in watermelon, does that really mean it has less impact on blood sugar? And the answer is not really, because we have to take a look at what this actually means when it comes to blood sugar management. It's not always just about the grams of sugar, it's how our body responds to them. So when we look at the relationship between watermelon and blood sugar, what we need to consider is we have to look at the glycemic index and the glycemic load. Now, if you're not familiar with these terms, I'm going to clarify what they mean. So the glycemic index, or what we refer to as GI, really helps to rank food by how quickly they will cause a rise in blood sugar after eating. So this rise is then compared to the rise you would receive from a similar amount of plain glucose or sugar. And when we look at the glycemic index scale, it ranges from 0, which means it has no effect on blood sugar, to 100, which is the impact of pure sugar. So when we look at the GI of watermelon, it's pretty high. It actually comes in with a GI of 80. So does this mean that watermelon is going to cause this huge spike in blood sugar when you consume it because it does have this higher GI? Not really, okay? It's not necessarily the case because when we look at GI, there is some issues with it, okay? The glycemic index uses grams of carbohydrate in a food to find its ranking. It's not necessarily the amount of food that's actually in a typical portion. So we can't always use the GI to figure out exactly how food's gonna impact our blood sugar. What we wanna look at is something called the glycemic load, or GL. And this is created so that we can look at an actual serving portion, something you're more realistically gonna eat, like 1 cup of watermelon. And that's gonna be more in line with how your blood sugar is gonna respond. And when we look at the GL of 1 cup of watermelon, it's actually only 5, which on the glycemic load scale is low. Now, why is there this big discrepancy between glycemic index and glycemic load? Well, what it happens is it comes back to the high water content of watermelon, okay? So you'd have to eat several cups of watermelon to cause that spike in blood sugar because of how much is being consumed in that glycemic index scale, okay? They're assuming that you're eating this abundance of watermelon. But when you eat just 1 cup, you're not having near as much sugar coming in, which is why it has less impact on your overall blood sugar. And that is why you know when it comes to diabetes management, portions matter. So when it comes to watermelon, eating 1 cup of watermelon is going to have a very moderate impact on blood sugar. Whereas if you sit down and eat bowls and bowls of watermelon, it's too many carbohydrates, too many sugar, and you will see a spike in blood sugar. Okay, so now that you know that watermelon in a 1 cup portion will have pretty much a low impact on blood sugar, I want to look at some of the health benefits that watermelon might potentially offer so you can see why it might be beneficial to incorporate into your diet. So in 1 cup of watermelon, if we're looking at the nutrition information, it has only about 46 calories, has 11 grams of carbohydrate, and just over about 1/2 gram of fiber. So it's not really that high in fiber, but you are also getting 170 milligrams of potassium. You're getting 17% of the daily value of vitamin A and 20% of the daily value of vitamin C. And that's in just 1 cup. So it's very nutrient rich. And since watermelon is a good source of vitamin A and vitamin C, this is great news, especially if you have diabetes, because both of these vitamins can offer health benefits. Vitamin C plays an important role in cancer prevention and cardiovascular health and eye health and keeping your immune system in shape. Vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, and we need it in our diet because it's essential for our immune system and for our eye health and even reproductive health. Now, when you think about people who have diabetes, you're at a greater risk of cardiovascular disease and diseases of the eye. So eating more vitamin C and more vitamin A-rich foods, which we know are protective to the heart and to the eyes, can be very beneficial. And that's where watermelon helps to fit in. Now, another benefit of watermelon is the hydration benefit. So if you are someone who struggles to drink enough water throughout the day, and especially when we talk about like the hot weather, when you're out in the summertime in the sun, that can be an issue if you're getting a little dehydrated. Now, drinking water, of course, is always the best choice, but a benefit of watermelon is that high water content. When you eat 1 cup of watermelon, it's actually the equivalent of drinking 1/2 cup of fluid. Now, you can't just rely on watermelon for your hydration source because obviously that would result in you eating too much watermelon and spiking blood sugar. But if you are someone who struggles to get in enough water each day, it's nice to know that when you have a high water content food like watermelon, it's helping you to meet those hydration goals. So let's talk about how you can fit watermelon into a diabetes-friendly diet. Because if you love watermelon, I'm sure you want to incorporate it more often, but you also want to be mindful that we keep blood sugar within a healthy range. So the first thing we have to talk about, of course, portions, all right? And I mentioned before, 1 cup of watermelon definitely can fit in as a meal or a snack, but I wouldn't recommend large portions of this melon because we know the more we eat of watermelon, the higher that glycemic index and glycemic load, and that's where we start to see blood sugar going up. Now, you also want to remember that the foods that help to slow down the digestion of carbs into sugar in the bloodstream are proteins, fats, and fiber. Now, watermelon, it has very little of these nutrients. It only has 1/2 gram of fiber per cup, has no protein or fat, so it's a really good idea when you add watermelon to your meal plan to add it with a source of protein, fat, or fiber. This will help to slow down how quickly it's digested and hopefully help to keep blood sugar more steady. So if you think about ways you can do this, you could do a watermelon salad with feta cheese, and that's adding some protein along with vegetables from the cucumber. You can make a watermelon pizza. I love to do this with a little Greek yogurt on top and some other berries and strawberries. It's really fun and colorful and a great way to add more protein as well. Or you could even have a garden salad and add some watermelon on top in cubes. And all of these are recipes that I have on my blog, so I'm going to link to them below so you can see just different fun ways to incorporate more watermelon along with those protein, fats, and fiber. So now let's talk about the best time to eat watermelon. Because when you add watermelon to your diabetes meal plan, the time that you eat it can have an impact on your blood sugar levels as well. Now, food can affect each person differently, okay? So, what affects you might affect somebody else differently when it comes to blood sugar management, but there are a few key times to look out for that might cause a bigger spike in blood sugar when you eat watermelon. So one of those is first thing in the morning. Okay, because some people find that first thing in the morning, they are more insulin resistant. And this really has to do with the hormones that your body produces as you're sleeping. So when you eat a food that's rich in carbohydrates first thing in the morning, sometimes you find that your blood sugar spikes more than if you were to eat it later on in the late morning or in the afternoon. Okay, so if you find this, you're better off sticking with watermelon at maybe a lunch or an afternoon snack versus first thing in the morning. Or if you do have it with breakfast, make sure it's combined with those proteins, fats, and fibers. Another time that wouldn't be the best time to have watermelon is right before you lay down to sleep. Okay, because there's a couple reasons. Your digestive system does slow down when you're sleeping, and so some people have reported if they eat watermelon right before bed, sometimes it leads to like an upset stomach or even diarrhea. So definitely having it earlier in the evening would be better. The other thing too is if you have a bowl of watermelon right before bed, this could cause your blood sugar to go up, and since you're not moving overnight as you're sleeping, you might see bigger spikes and even crashes overnight from your blood sugar. So if you do want watermelon in the evening, definitely combine it with the protein, fat, and fiber, but try to keep it to about 2-3 hours before bedtime so you have plenty of time to digest it. Another thing to consider too is it does have a high water volume, so you don't want to eat it right before bed or you might be waking up to go to the bathroom too. So let's talk about what the bottom line is when it comes to watermelon and diabetes. The answer to that question, can I have watermelon if I have diabetes, is yes. Yes, you can safely eat watermelon on a diabetes diet, but you do always have to remember that your body is unique and every person's blood glucose is going to respond differently to food. So the only way to truly know how your blood sugars respond to watermelon is to experiment and to test your blood glucose levels. So when you eat your watermelon, make sure you are checking your blood sugar after to see how your body responds. And remember too that the ideal portion is 1 cup of watermelon. So you can start with a half a cup, see how you respond, go up to a cup, but I wouldn't recommend having multiple cups at one serving. All right, so tell me, what do you think of this series? What food do you want to see featured next on Can I Eat That with Diabetes? I want to know. So comment below, let me know. Let me know if you've been eating watermelon this summer and how it's been impacting your blood sugar. I want to hear from you. And if you liked today's video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss new tips, tricks, and recipes. Thanks for joining me.